I was born into a stressful childhood where there was a lot of fighting. Sugar was my coping crutch. It would give me the momentary numbing and distraction that I would seek on a regular basis. It became my obsession, my friend in troubled times. I would even take all of my lunch money and spend it on candy. And my mom would hide the sugary substances in the top cabinets, and I would climb the counters in search of my next high. In college, I became a fitness instructor, partly to offset my high sugar diet, which continued as I became a fitness professional after college. Soon after that, I became a national level fitness competitor. And deep down inside, I had hoped the vanity needed in my profession would override my obsession. I was on the ultimate treadmill, working out more to eat more, over-exercising and over-exercising, so much so that by the age of 26, I became ill with multiple autoimmune suppression issues. I'm still amazed at the irony of what was happening back then. Here I was, this fitness professional with all the motivation in the world, dedicated enough to be a national level fitness competitor. I had access to every diet trick and tip out there, and an overwhelming desire to free myself of this all-consuming obsession. Yet, I couldn't break it. It ran my life. I was always thinking about when I was going to get my next sugar fix. How on earth could I be so motivated, but I couldn't break free of this behavior that was ruling my world? Conventional wisdom says that motivation is the key to change. I was motivated, but it just wasn't enough. Fast forward a few years later, and I was blessed to give birth to twin girls. Never in my life did I feel the level of sleep deprivation as I did back then. Parents, you know what I mean. Fast forward 2.5 years later, and they began preschool. And I started to feel like I was getting back into a normal routine. One specific morning, as I was driving to school, I felt especially energized, mentally clear, and I felt amazing. As I went to my office, I started checking things off of my checklist, and I thought to myself, I'm back. Until I went to my daughter's school later that afternoon for a Halloween party. And as I entered, I was greeted with a table filled with treats. And there it was, my favorite treat of all treats. Cupcakes with buttercream icing, calling my name. And as I battled this conversation in my head, I finally convinced myself, what's one gonna do? Well, I will tell you what one can do. 30 minutes later, I went back to my office and I felt exhausted. I felt like crawling under my desk and taking a nap. I felt like canceling every meeting, phone call, and hiding from my staff. I felt irritable and socially withdrawn. And it hit me with clarity like never before. That sugar stole my energy. I immediately got angry at the sugar, and I got angry at myself for doing something that stole the energy that I so was appreciating earlier that day. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. And then I realized something with my new clarity, that sugar that I had such a strong bond with for so many years, my friend in troubled times, had actually been my energy enemy. I mean, it had been my energy enemy all along. I just didn't realize it as much as I did in this moment because the contrast between energy and exhaustion was at a level that I had never had before. And as I realized this, I was able to change my emotional connection with the sugar from friend to foe. And I became aware of something very significant. I became aware of that I now valued my energy more than the taste of sugar for a moment's high. This was finally the catalyst to transform my relationship with the sugar, because I was able to replace an old value with a new, greater value. And any time after that moment that I was tempted to taste the sugar, I would repeat a mantra to myself over and over again, my new value proposition, that nothing tastes as good as my good energy or mental clarity feels. I knew this aha moment was going to be transformational, not just for myself, but for anyone who had struggled in trying to change a behavior. Now that I understood, motivation is often just not enough. Motivation without continued change in beliefs is just a short-term fix. Motivation is like a sugar high. It can give you a quick boost, but it doesn't really garner long-term results. True change that gives long-term results occurs through transformation, which begins by changing one's beliefs first. And in creating a new belief system, it is important to assign a greater value to the behavior that we desire to change. In other words, get really clear as to how the new behavior creates a greater outcome than the old behavior. It's the answer to the ongoing question: why do so many people join the gym on January 2nd with such motivation, only to quickly fizzle out by the end of the month in their well-intentioned goals? It's because they never actually change their belief systems or their emotional connection to the food or exercise to begin with. So then how can we apply these findings of transformation to transform all aspects of our lives for greater results? I have broken down the transformation process into a 4-step approach using the acronym MORE, because once we learn this, we can get more of everything good out of life, and who doesn't want that, right? The M stands for mindfulness and mindset. As I became more mindful of how the sugar made me feel and that it no longer served me, while giving my energy greater value, I was able to begin my process of transformation. In our process of transformation, and we become more mindful, we realize that the beliefs and behaviors that are blocking us can change, and we can replace them and reframe them to reprogram new beliefs of greater value for long-lasting change. O stands for optimization in body and brain. We all can remember a time in our lives where we were tired or we didn't really feel well. And I'm sure we can also remember in that time that we probably didn't make as empowered of choices in those moments because we're depleted, right? The more consistent we can become in creating habits that support our bodies and brains, doing things like eating right, sleeping enough, staying hydrated, and exercising, the more we can be energized and mentally clear to create an opportunity to make better choices, eliminating too many moments of weakness on our transformation journey as we try to create new habits. This is not a path of perfection, but a more conscious approach and awareness that how we feel affects what we do. Ultimately, the better we feel, the better choices we're going to make. R stands for responsiveness versus reactiveness, leading a responsive versus reactive lifestyle. Many years ago, I watched a movie called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and there was a quote in it that really impacted my life. And the quote was, "Fools react, warriors respond." I immediately thought to myself, well, I sure would prefer to go through life like a warrior instead of a fool. And that lesson really impacted how I perceived how we go through life reacting to it versus responding to it. So often people go through life reacting to it instead of responding to it. And if we could just learn to become more intentional creators by simply pausing more often, assessing, reframing before responding, we realize that we have a ton of power in our perspective and our ability to choose how we handle situations. In becoming more responsive to life, we can see that we can create our own path, and we can course correct quickly when needed. And with all of that, we realize we're a lot more powerful than we ever thought was possible. And E stands for excelling in all aspects of life. Everything is connected. As much as we'd like to believe we can go through life putting things in boxes, we really can't. At least not for a sustainable period of time before we see its adverse effects. I've identified 4 key quadrants of life that are connected, that I believe we should nourish and nurture every day. It's our health, our relationships, our finances, and our personal growth and evolution. When I began my journey of transformation, breaking my sugar addiction, it became very clear that my mental clarity and newfound energy helped me be more productive at work, which obviously fuels my financial quadrant. But it also made me healthier and happier, which in turn makes me a better mom, boss, and just a better overall person, which then lends to excelling my own personal potential. So as you go through your journeys of transformation, it's really important to be mindful to nourish all 4 quadrants of our life for greater overall success and happiness. Transformation, by definition, is a dramatic and thorough change in form and appearance. Essentially, we should all become what it is we desire. Transformation is possible for just about anyone at any moment. Once we realize what we want to change and give value to how that will change our lives and remove the beliefs and blocks that are holding us back and become more intentional of how we are living, life becomes so much sweeter. Not sugary sweet, of course, but a nourishing sweetness. So as you begin your journeys of transformation and you set new goals for yourself, instead of just trying to force them through motivation, ask yourself, what beliefs and behaviors are blocking me? And what value can be added by removing them or changing them? And how can I transform them to transform myself, to transform my life? Thank you very much. Thank you.